whatever day you're watching this, fresh off the press, Pearl just went out and whooped all kinds of ass. So, those of you that, well, if you're new to the channel, first of all, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Ram 1500 SST standard output, SST just straight 6 turbo. But one thing I wanted to tell you guys is that in working with my good buddy Matt over at Moe's Performance, we were taking a look at Pearl. Some of the numbers that she had run stock were going to lend her to being a pretty strong example of the breed. And so after looking at it and seeing some of the numbers she was putting down, we thought, man, we've got some good DAs coming up. Let's go ahead, throw some parts at her, see how she does. Well, apparently she does pretty good because, yeah, Pearl just went out and ran a 1280, what was it, a 1286? No, 1284, and a string of 1280s. So, yeah, I would say Pearl's doing really good. This is rocking from Moe's Performance, the Diablo Cat 6 tuner and a K&N air filter and intake system. So, yeah, absolutely ripping it. So where does that put Pearl in the whole grand scheme of things? Well, when you look at it from a certain point of view, she's actually number one, top spot for 93 octane in the 8th mile, running an 814 in the 8th mile. The truck was absolutely ripping it. So yes, number one in 8th mile for 93 octane. She's number two for 93 octane in the quarter mile at that 1284. Just couldn't eke out a 1283. I was having problems with traction, and then that turned into, well, more problems with traction, trying to play with some settings, and, well, things just didn't go the way that I had hoped, but it went as well as I could have ever hoped to be for that truck. It's a Laramie 355 gear, 22-inch wheels. It didn't really pull a whole lot of weight. Did the normal spare tire and jack, and that's kind of sort of it, except for, oh, the bed mat and some floor mats. That's all the race prep she got, guys. Nothing really to write home about. And boy, did she get out there and still run a number. So in that respect, I got to say she's nice and strong. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Real short show tonight. I'm still in the process of trying to get things cleaned up, get the truck sorted out, put back together, because yeah, it's got to go back to work here in a couple of days. So yeah, I've got to take care of that. But you know, I gotta say, I'm really stoked. I didn't really have a whole lot of expectations for this truck when I first started messing around with it, but also less than that. I mean, when I got it, here's the funny thing about this. So the reason why I'm kind of crone about this in a way is because of how much shit that I talked coming into me ever even buying one of these trucks. So, you know, the fact that this thing is running the kind of numbers that it is, it's pretty impressive to say the least. And to put that into perspective as far as how this truck would have done up against Whitey, Whitey was fully tuned. And so it's hard to compare the two, although, you know, with a Cat 6, these trucks do pick up a ton of power, but you don't have the ability to extend speed limiters. You don't have the ability to adjust shift points. There's component protections that you can't control. Basically, what you're doing is you're just trying to get away with something with these pickup trucks to where, you know, you can still make the power, make it safely. All the safety precautions are still in play. It's just one of those things where, because you can't tune some of those out, you start to run into some consistency issues. So if my truck didn't 60 foot that great, it would have a great mile an hour. Or if it 60 footed great, it was kind of running into like a cat over temp protection thing. And then you get into heat and, you know, parts getting soaked and stuff like that with heat. And these trucks are sensitive to that. They're just like a Hellcat in that respect, where you can't just keep beating on them. You got 1 or 2 hits in a max when they're cold. Outside of that, they're going to start to heat soak. So the standard output just doesn't have the heat mitigation gadgets that the higher outputs do. So you make do with what you got, but on the street, I got to tell you, these standard outputs are a lot of fun to drive. But it's funny to say that I'm having problems with traction in an all-wheel drive 5,800 pound truck. So standard output, I got to say, pretty darn impressive. But in saying all that, you know, would I say that the truck's got more in it? Yeah, I would say the truck's got more in it. Running a different wheel and tire setup would certainly help, and mainly because the 22s with the really short tire, I'm limited to traction by just the footprint of the tire itself. There's no cushion in that tire, so to speak, to help me launch. So there's a little bit of a frustration point with that. But I mean, no excuses. The truck absolutely rips. And if there was any doubt as far as how good these trucks can run, I gotta say, they've been put to rest with me for sure. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it's gonna be a bit of a short show. I know it's kind of late, but I wanted to jump on, share that with you. Send a huge shout out to my main man Matt over at Moe's. You know, it's kind of funny. It's interesting for me messing around with this truck, and one of the most endearing things about it is how and you can hear the with the turbos and all of that. I don't know. I'm kind of a sucker for gimmicky things like that. And even stock. Here's the funny thing: the truck went a 1294 with the stock tune and just an intake. So, or was it a 1296? It was 1290 something, 129X, right? Not a low 12.9, like a mid to high 12.9 with just the intake on the thing. So, I mean, there's something to that contraption too. But yeah, that's what I wanted to come on and tell you guys, and you know, let you know. Yeah, we're still doing some kind of car stuff around here, but mainly just surface, you know, scratching the surface, I guess you can say. Bruce, you hear the turbo sounds of a turbo Gixxer? You could. You very much could. You know, I'm not big into that. So here's the thing: turbos on a bike. For me, here's the thing: I'm not a power queen when it comes to power on a bike. I like good, adequate, height, weight, proportionate power for the type of bike. I wouldn't turbo a GSXR 1000. It just doesn't. It's not the recipe for fun that I would really want to try to employ because of the type of chassis that it is and all of that. But what I would do is entertain turbocharging a Hayabusa. And the reason for that is that the Hayabusa is just made to go fast. I mean, that's it. That is one of the most stable, one of the most just cleanest motorcycles to run at speed. And I know a lot of guys will say, yeah, but it's not as fast as a GSXR 1000. You would be right in saying that. But, you know, the thing is that fast, it's kind of a subjective thing. And if you've never ridden a Hayabusa versus a GSXR 1000, one of the creepy things about a Hayabusa is just how just lazily it accelerates. Now, not to say that it's lazy, it's just effortless is what I was looking for. Oh yeah, motorcycles in a nice life. I think we got enough motorcycles behind me. Hey, listen, if you're cold, they're cold, bring them inside. Been putting work into the 600. Let me show you guys that. If y'all can see that. This thing doesn't go all the way over. Anyway, getting this thing cleaned up, it was a complete mess. And it's kind of funny. I took it out. I did the video on it, but it was like a behind the scenes video where a lot of times I'll take a bike out and I'll go through like some ideas. As I'm riding the bike, I'll have the route planned out and I'm working through some ideas as far as how I'm going to present that particular bike. I did that with this one, and guys, what? So the GSXR 600, just so you know, will absolutely hit 13,750 in 6th gear. Go to gearing calculator and sort that out as far as what the speed was. You cannot see it in the video, unfortunately. And it's not really a video that I would air, if you know what I mean, but it was a really fun video for me because it was cold, it was wet, and was able to do an all-out, outright top speed run with the GSXR 600. So, yeah, here's the other funny thing about this bike. It runs better than it should, in my opinion, but I was able to just park it at whatever speed, just south of, max speed. And the bike is so easy, it just kind of just floats. I don't know. It's a thing with Gixxer middleweights. They're just so friendly, they're so inviting, and that's why I love them so much. And the 600 is one of my all-time favorite motorcycles, along with the 750, right? So, yeah, forgive my bias a little bit, but I mean, you get on the thing and you park it at, say, 130, 140, and you just ride that number for however long you wanted to. The bike just did not feel like it was stressed at all. Skids, good evening. Got the bald guy with the flex and the specs. I like it. We got a short show tonight, talking mainly about Pearl going out and running a 12.8 today with that Cat 6 from Diablo Sport and the K&N intake. Thanks to my good friend Matt over at Moe's Performance. You guys got a Dodge, you know who to call to make your trucks go fast. Owns basically every record that's out there, or has somebody associated with them that owns every record. Now that we own the outright 93 octane 8th mile record, second place in 93 octane quarter mile, and I want to say we might have the mile an hour record in the quarter mile. I know we do for 93 octane, because that was at 105. So Skid saying, so the Ram was running good, but the cold helped some. That's still a good number. Actually, with these trucks, DA isn't the thing that helps you out the most. It's all about traction with these trucks. DA helps, but you can have a 2,000 or a 2,500 foot swing, and it really doesn't affect it. I mean, that number would typically be a pretty big swing in DA, and with these trucks, it'll be about half a tenth, from what I've seen anyway. Stock for stock. So it really is more about traction. It's about getting the truck to hook up, and that's been the kind of the driving force with my truck coming into this, was just trying to get the thing to hook, because man, with that Cat 6 on level 3, it's just trying to spin the tire, all 4 tires. So yeah, that was a real thing to have to deal with. So, but yeah, the cold helps, but it's mainly barometric pressure that you're chasing. That's the big part. Miki, change the catalytic converters to high flow? No. You don't touch anything on that truck. Luke's asking, apologies if you've already answered this before. Is the reason the GSXR 600 and 750 not get updates mostly due to the cost of updates to emissions versus expected sales? Sorta. Good question. And I've answered it, but I haven't really dove into the answer other than to say this. Let me put it to you. The easiest way I can explain this is Suzuki sells every single one of the GSXR 600s and 750s that they make. The machines that make the motorcycles can only make so many motorcycles per year. There's not like a speed up knob that you can put on the machine that makes the frames, and the machine that makes the rims, and the machine that makes the gadgets and the gizmos that make the bike, right? Their production capacity to make more of the bike that they already have isn't necessary. And because these machines have been bought and paid for probably a decade ago, they sell every bike they make. There's no incentive. In fact, they're disincentivized to go in and make a whole lot of changes to that bike, because the demand is so high for these bikes, for the bikes that they're currently making. Now, there is an understanding that at some point the update may or may not take place. Um, but the thing is that there's no plan to ditch the current motorcycle or to up option it with quick shifters and TFT screens and all of that. There was a rumor that for 2026, the middleweights were going to get a facelift. And that didn't happen. And in talking to some folks at Suzuki, they basically just said, look, if we do anything, it'll be an update, but they're not really all that concerned about bringing this bike to European markets. Again, they make all that they can sell, and they're just not interested to invest any more into this bike. In fact, I would expect more that they would introduce a new motorcycle before they started making changes to these, because again, the demand for this type of bike is so high. It's one of the reasons why. I'll give you another example. You're asking about the GSXR middleweights, but it's not the only bike that Suzuki has decided not to give the full-on techno treatment to. The Hayabusa fits into this. So, the Hayabusa still has analog clocks. They could easily put a big TFT screen on that bike and, tart that thing up and dress it up, give it a new look or whatever. But the people that want to go buy a Busa, that's the bike they want to buy. And that bike having a quick shifter and being Euro 5 compliant with the Gen 3 bikes, that's great and all. Weird bike to make Euro 3, but hey, here's where we're at. But for the middleweights, the bike that you would think that would have the most technologically advanced stuff that Suzuki has to offer, at least that was kind of the trademark, right, of middleweights from back in the day. I mean, back in the day, every couple of years, the middleweights were being updated. And I mean, if you went 4 years, that bike was long in the tooth by the standard of that day. But now, since these kind of bikes fell out of favor, again, Suzuki just hasn't had any reason to update or upgrade or whatever. And also keep in mind, there's a scat few markets that were still selling these sport bikes. When these types of bikes fell out of favor for the better part of a decade, making room for the sport naked class of bikes, people just quit buying them. They would say that they're uncomfortable because that's what they're being told. But, you start throwing a leg over these middleweights, you find out not only how comfortable they are, but how capable and fun they are. And now the pendulum, as it always seems to do, is swung back. And not only are these bikes now more in fashion, but Chinese manufacturers are trying to copy these types of bikes as best they can. So the Chinese manufacturers are doubling down on the 4-cylinder architecture, which is a good thing. And with manufacturers like KTM making a twin-cylinder, parallel twin at that, sport bike with the RCR 990, getting kind of forced positive reviews. The R9 has proven itself to be a bit disappointing in the way that bike actually performs on the street versus the promise of what 900cc triple could be. I think the expectations are just a little bit too high for that bike. Great bike for the uninitiated track guy to get his start on, but there's a reason why you see a lot of them for sale. But there's a bigger reason why you see a lot of YouTubers that are just turning them back in. They're trading them in on something. So, yeah, there's that. And of course, the Ducati, the Panigale V2, the new one, $17,000? No. I'm sorry, but there's just not enough overall performance out of that bike to justify it, even though it may arguably be the best of the newer generation bikes. I'm just not big into the bigger but less powered bikes. So, but as far as, to your point or to your question, no, I wouldn't necessarily expect to see Suzuki do anything outside of maybe option packages for these bikes over here. And if they ever do anything with them to make them Euro 5 compliant, I haven't heard of anything, and I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath on that, because what makes these bikes great is that they're lightweight, they're they're lightweight, they're fun to ride. They're a traditional Screamer 4-cylinder, but more to the point, they're the fastest of the group, you know. And if you want something like, you know, if you want a Suzuki that is more road bias, I keep doing this air quotes thing, but more road bias, man, you're better off finding like a GSX 8R is a great bike, upgradable, very punchy. I really love the engine, and it's one of my more favorite bikes to ride. But it does have a very finite performance window if you're comparing it to one of these. But still a great bike, fun to ride, and equally capable, especially if you're in an urban environment. You might find it to be an easier bike to ride and a more fun bike to ride in that respect. Especially, you know, cool bikes like the TT, for example. You know, there could be a place in my garage for a TT one day. Not now, but maybe one day. And that's how much I like that engine family, and how much I like the TT when I rode it. I was saying again, thank you for expanding on the answer. Yeah, there definitely been more interested in the new bikes, 8S, 8R. Okay, there you go, 18 TT. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, look, don't get it twisted. There is a massive performance difference between these bikes and those bikes if the performance criteria that you're looking at is just outright speed, right? But let me also remind you that it was the 8TT that I was on when I was following this bike right here on the demo ride, where the guy was just in the wrong gear on the 750, and I just basically motored up on him on the TT. And it's an effortless bike to ride. And again, if you're in more of an urban setting, you know, within the confines of what would make up, you know, actual just city riding, it's tough to beat one of the 776 powered bikes. And there's a lot of bikes that are out there that are also kind of fit into that mold. But anyway, for me, it's old school hot rod or bust, frankly. But and by the way, I am hoping to get you guys some footage of the 600. I might be able to get some tomorrow. If I can get some of my work taken care of, I'm going to try to get that knocked out for you. Man, inhaled some of this coffee. It's getting to me. You can't inhale this stuff, can you? But with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out. It is a bit of a short show tonight, but I wanted to share with you the success with Pearl, let you know how she did, and where that truck sits now in the standings. Can we do a little bit better? Man, I don't know. The DA, the conditions today, they were pretty much lottery hits. And, you know, realistically, you know, will that truck run those kind of numbers all the time? Yeah, probably not. But we had the conditions today to run them in, and boy, we took advantage of it. And, you know, hopefully we can be able to replicate this sometime soon. But with that, guys, I got to go ahead and wrap it up. Listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, guys, I'm out. Y'all take it easy.